thanks a lot for everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to come here to talk to you. And it's also a pleasure to give this talk. And actually, before saying to give this talk, let us just say that this is a talk. So whenever you feel like you're compelled to interrupt me and talk together, that's just fine. Let's talk. Let's not make of this a cathedral speech. So anyways, it is a pleasure for me to come here to talk to you about this theme, which is very personal to me. And it started, I should say, by having lunch with my beautiful wife, Ariane, one day in which we were talking about the ways that nature is seen and in many ways thought of as a resource. And to the communities that I research and that I interact with, nature is never a resource. It is a living being. It is a deity. They are communities that worship nature. So there's a total different way of seeing it, and that's what motivated us to think of this talk today here. I'm very happy to see all of you here willing to listen to it and to participate in it. So Julie already presented me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and present what I'm talking about today. So I'm gonna start by making a little preamble to the talk because I think it is better if you see where I'm coming from to actually get to the goal of what I want to present. From the goal on, we'll have a little way. Once again, it is a talk, so we'll try to build it together. We'll have a little way to actually getting to the facts that I've learned doing this research and that I wanted to talk about, to then actually show you the bigger picture behind it and close it in the end. So the preamble, this very research started when I was a master's student and I wanted to go to Argentina, because Buenos Aires is so beautiful, right? So I wanted to go to Argentina to make my field research. I have training in social sciences, so anthropology, sociology. I went to do ethnographic research in the city of Ramos Mejia, that's in the province of Buenos Aires. And I wanted to investigate Afro-Brazilian religions in Argentina. Specifically there, so Afro-Brazilian religions are many. Specifically in Argentina, I wanted to research the ones that are identified as Umbanda, Quimbanda, and Batuque. Those are three different religions practiced typically in the same temple, but they have different rituals and everything. Of course, since they are Afro-Brazilian religions, they come together in the same temple and form a tradition of the temple that we call a house, so the tradition of the house. I wanted to investigate the communities formed around and for the people, by the people of those houses, and to understand how they dealt with the state. Once again, I'm talking about marginalized religion, even in Brazil. Think about it in white Argentina. So the state doesn't really want to have a Catholic state in Argentina, doesn't really want to have Afro-Brazilian religions there. Yet they are there. There are over 1,000 temples in the surrounding area of Buenos Aires, and I wanted to. Yeah, that really is a wow, because if you think of the city of Salvador in Brazil, the blackest city out of Africa, and actually the second biggest black city in the world after the city of Niger, Salvador does not have 1,000 temples accounted for. It has more because people practice at home and so on, but accounted for, it doesn't have 1,000. So it's a lot that Buenos Aires has so many. Anyways, there I went to do my ethnographic research and try to learn how that community was living. And once again, I should say those are Afro-diasporic religions. They are not African religions in Brazil or in Argentina. They are Afro-diasporic religions. So when they got to Brazil, they became Afro, well, when they were structured in Brazil during hundreds of years, they became Afro-Brazilian religions. That's to say that in many ways they are Afro-Amerindian religions and they are traditions that are structured by women. Those are female traditions. If we think of paternalistic, patriarchal Africa, that's not the case in Brazil. And when they move, they transnationalize to Argentina. Many values that are behind it move together with the religions, but others are incorporated. Those are very adaptive forms of religion, different of, for example, Roman Catholicism that tends to be Roman Catholicism wherever it is. Those are not religions like that. So they tend to adapt. So what I'm really talking about here is Afro-Brazilian Argentinian religions. Since I went to do ethnographic work in this house, I started to learn with the people of that house. I'm talking about visible people and invisible people as well, living beings and dead people as well. Also deities, right? There is the phenomenon of mediunic. Those are mediunic religions, right? So the phenomenon of incorporation. And through that, I met Nema. She was a more than human person that instigated me to learn about her life and her narrative. And that's pretty much what's behind all that I'm going to present here today. So to make a very long story really short, Nema was born in Minas Gerais, the same state where I'm from in Brazil. In the 19th century, she lived a very tragic life. She was born out of her mother being raped by the slave owner, the slave farmer, right? And she was also raped, and she had a son. The son was taken from her because it was the son and the grandson of the same guy. So he looked like the guy. They took the kid from her. She was very sad. She went after the kid, never receiving any document that she was free. So she went after the kid anyways. We were talking about Brazilian past. So that's 19th century rural Brazilian. It was very difficult to move around. To move around, she had the help of indigenous Brazilian people that took her to wherever she thought her kid had gone, which was a port. But then again, Brazil, where's the port? So she went to where she thought it was, and it was in the shore of the Rio São Francisco. That's the Velho Chico, that's the St. Francis River. And there she went to a port city. She never found her kid, and she died a very difficult life, probably of tuberculosis. Ever since then, she is a spiritual entity that come back to those temples to tell her story, and people in the present learn from that story. So I heard her story in 2013, and she, once again, was probably from the 19th century. We are not very certain of the date. And then I do a parenthesis. I'm here talking about spiritual entity giving me feedback and information to research. How is that possible? Is it possible to have a spiritual entity as an interlocutor of research? So in anthropological, in this case, more anthropological, but also most of social scientists theory, we do have examples of spiritual beings being the source to research. We have different authors doing that. I just took the examples of two American ones. To say that this is not the Brazilian kid doing it in Brazil. Ruth Lentz and Diana Brown were two American researchers that went to Brazil to research those religions as well, and they talked to entities and they used that to feedback their research. Of course, there is a matter of belief. You may not believe that there is a spiritual being there. That's no problem to social research. Once again, we are talking about a collective phenomena. Religions are collective phenomena, and they have been studied for hundreds of years by social scientists such as myself. And in what relates to Afro-Brazilian religions, the census show us that around 2 to 3% of Brazilians practice those religions. We are a lot of Brazilians, so I'm talking about 6 to 8 million people, not counting everyone else that still believe in the spirits, even if they don't practice the religion. Just to give one example, 30% of Brazilian people are neo-Pentecostal Brazilians that hate those religions just because they hate the spirits. So they still believe in them. They don't want to talk to them, but they still believe they are there. So that's already 30-some% of Brazilians. We're talking about 60 million people. So that's a big enough social phenomenon to be worth studying. Once again, moving on with the preamble, I'll get to the research. NEMA had different interpreters so we could get here to this research. One of them was the mother of saint, the high priestesses of the temple, Patricia de Oyatimboa. Patricia is her name, Oyatimboa her deity that she carries on in her head. And the researchers, of course, myself and my dear professor, Tânia Mara Campos de Almeida, who was my advisor. At a point, it was so much information that I couldn't handle it alone. So I asked for help, and she helped me understand everything that we were finding out through research. And this I should point out once again, this is a story that talks about the otherness versus the nation state. I'm not talking here about official Brazil. I'm talking about the forgotten rivers of the Brazilian past and present that no one in what relates to official history, official geography want to know about. Those are untold histories. Those are unlearned geographies. I'm from Minas Gerais. I never learned everything in school that I learned from NEMA. And after, by doing a very long research, I took 1 year trying to find information to get where she wanted me to go. And I'm going to talk about this in a little while. Anyways, I do have the support of Latin American social theory, for example, from the authors Lélia Gonzalez, Rita Laura Segato, Mario Ruffer, and in this case, also a little bit of Indian subaltern theory with Gayatri Spivak. That's in dialogue with my research. I do release Latin American social research, but I do dialogue with other perspectives. Mine are an African and decolonial perspective. Those are my research routes. So by trying to understand NEMA, I always formed pictures of her in my head, but I can't draw. So I asked the help of Microsoft Copilot. And by feeding in the characteristics I knew from her, it gave me that picture of that very happy and beautiful woman. And the reason she is so happy is that she's a happy entity. She had a very sad life, but she's a very happy entity. And so that's how we portrayed her. And this is interesting to show that this Brazilian Black woman sent her message through that white Argentinian priestesses that never spoke Portuguese. However, incorporated with NEMA, she spoke very clear Portuguese, and the Portuguese that I understood because I'm from Minas Gerais, where she was from. She talked about natural scenarios that no one in the Ramos Mejia ever thought existed. And when I got there and I was listening to her, I was like, oh yeah, that's that place and that's that place. And she was like, yeah, you understand. So we're from the same place. Anyway, so those two women are my most important interlocutors to what I'm wanting to talk about here today. So what is it? Where am I going with this? NEMA left in 2020, more or less, a dream in the head of so NEMA left a dream in the head of the Mother of Saint, which was the dream of a river with masks. And she left her a message. I was back in Brazil already. I had already finished my PhD and everything, and she left her a message. Guilherme needs to research this. a dream of a river and masks. I was like, okay, good. So what am I going to do with that? The thing is, through her dream, she said that she wanted me to learn about I'm going to take a poetic approach here, the subalternized people near the St. Francis River, not subaltern people. People are not subaltern. People are not slaves. People are enslaved. People are subalternized. People are not illegal. People are made illegal by powerful politicians that think of that way. Anyways, so she wanted me to research about the subalternized people near the St. Francis River, the more than human beings that shared their life with them, the ecosystem scenarios forming the traditional communities around the river, and the river itself as a living being. Beneath her request, we do know that there is the idea of sacredness of nature, the Afro-Amerindian religions as nature conservation social systems also is beneath all of that. And of course, the insurgent need to change the course of socio-ecological history and neoliberal projects in South America. Once again, I'm talking about Brazil and Argentina here, countries that are being at present modified in many ways. I was going to say the word destructed, but I learned from Ariane yesterday that we can't use that to talk about nature, right? To social systems, yes. So socially destructed and degraded in what relates to nature by the current economic project that's going on that people tend to resist it, which is the reason I use the word insurgent need, yet it's still going on. So we have different realities in the country in what relates to Brazil that are dialoguing and not in the same plane. There is a very big power difference between those realities, yet the subalternized one still talks, still exists, and still passes their message, for example, through the Umbanda religion. Anyway, so coming back to the dream, a beach with masks. So when the mother of Saint told me that, I was like, okay, so let me try to find St. Francis River beaches. And I just did a Google search and I sent her a bunch of images such as those. Those are actually all from touristic agencies. That's why they have those marks. And I sent her all of those and she was like, yeah, none of those. I was like, okay, so where am I going to find it? So I always had the intuition that Nema was talking about the city of Pirapora in Minas Gerais. I always felt like that was her destination port. So I found a picture of the city of Pirapora, the beach of Pirapora, not that specific picture, but one of that beach, and I sent it to the mother of Saint, and she was like, yeah, that's the one. I was like, okay, so I found the beach. What about the masks? Then I started to read and found out that there is a tradition of doing those carrancas, that's the name of that, in the city of Pirapora. That's an old craft that artisans, Black artisans and their families still keep on doing, and they were related to the past of Pirapora, which was a past of the scene being built with the trade through the Velho Chico River. And so I sent those pictures to the mother of Saint, and she was like, yeah, those are the masks. So I was like, okay, I have to learn about that. I had already learned that they were the craft of, once again, forgotten Black and poor people. And mind that, because the communities are forgotten, but the masks, the carrancas themselves, they are actually cultural heritage. You never know that they are made by the people, the communities that make them, but the carrancas themselves are important to Brazil as cultural heritage. And then I make the second parenthesis, which is a very sad one. This beach doesn't exist anymore. It's all degraded now. We actually tried yesterday to find pictures to show the beach. I couldn't put them in here because it is so sad to see tractors actually digging sand on the beach, so they are trying to make it beautiful again. So it was already a very beautiful place, but it's so degraded that now we need a construction and construction companies making money out of it. That's so it becomes beautiful again. It's not the natural scenario anymore. It's going to be a modified place, and that's very sad to me. It's not there once again because of overusage, changes in the water cycle, degradation of the beach ecosystem and of the river itself. The St. Francis River was always a river that ran the whole year round ever since I was a kid. But when I became a teenager, it started to dry, which is a very important thing for a person coming from Minas Gerais because it is a symbol of the state. And now it's drying every year. So a great portion of the river is in Minas Gerais, which is the place of recent dam disasters, mining disasters of Mariana and Brumadinho. A lot of people died in those disasters, and one other river actually died, the river itself, Rio Doce, which I always learned stories from my grandparents of that river. It doesn't exist anymore, it died with the dam disasters. None of that is of interest to the traditional communities, but that's what's going on right now. So anyways, I learned a few facts from those research. One of them I already said about the communities that make the carrancas. But more than that, I learned about more than human beings of the river that the carrancas related to. And three of those beings are important to this story. The Caboclo d'Água. Caboclo is also an indigenous person. The Nego d'Água, Nego, once again, a Black person. Those were entities of the water. And the Mãe d'Água. Mãe d'Água meaning the mother of the water. Those were entities that existed in the river and that were important to the life of those people around the river by then and still today. I probably didn't make this point, but all that I'm talking about is not only a thing of the past. Traditional communities still do exist. They still worship those deities. They still try to live their lives off the river in those traditional ways. And they point to different ways of thinking the river and of relating to the river that are not taken into consideration by the current economic progress of Brazil. So that's the boat that took the carranca. It doesn't navigate anymore. Nowadays, they use diesel-moved boats. Those were very different boats. They were moved by people. It wasn't pretty. Those sticks coming out of it, a person called Remeiro used to put them on his chest. It was always a man, a Black man or an indigenous man. He would put them on the chest and make the boat move in the water. That was, of course, very hard, and it made a huge scar on the chest that was called a medallion. And whomever had a medallion was actually seen as a bad person. So they had the worst job in the region, and yet they were considered to be the worst people as well. Anyways, that was necessary to move merchandise around the river. And we are talking about Minas Gerais. So lots of goods came out of that state and had to be moved in the river. So the river structured people life. And once again, we have subalternized people coming out of that. One of the groups are the boat conductors, the remeiros that I just said. Those remeiros, as we researched, we learned that they related pretty much to alcohol and prostitutes and to their heavy work in the river. So the prostitutes are the second social group that come out of this research. With a third one very subalternized, which is in Portuguese called mulher de remeiro. That's the prostitute woman who actually spent the night with the remeiro, because the remeiros themselves were so subalternized that they couldn't even find women willing to spend the night with them. The ones that did were as subalternized as they were, and they were called mulher de remeiro. That all makes part of the magical religious system, as it's called by Neves, and that I call the Afro-Amerindian religious system, that was in dialogue with popular Catholicism. So if you think of a place such as Pirapora in the 19th century, we are talking about everywhere. The whole place was built around that magical religious system. Even the elites of the place were adapted to that system, because the elites were Catholic elites, but they were not Roman Catholic elites. They were popular Catholic elites. That's very far from Rome. So that's the Catholicism that happened there was the popular one, and it was in dialogue with the Afro-Amerindian religious system. It was also in dialogue, once again, with a mercantile system. There was commerce inside and outside the communities happening through the river. The river was used to move, once again, production of minerals, coffee, dairy out of Minas Gerais. And that actually fed the whole Brazilian economy and the international commerce out of Brazil. Minas Gerais was, during the 18th and the beginning of 19th century, considered the world's capital of gold. So those subalternized lives were important for England, for Portugal, for Spain to have gold that they still have today. Those beautiful churches in Portugal, they were fed with gold out of Minas Gerais, and that were carried by those subalternized people that Brazilian history don't remember anymore. That were trying to live off the river that we are destructing today. So anyways, that's a whole lot of subalternized people making it possible that the current Brazil exists. Brazil is built over the blood of African and Afro-descendant enslaved people, of Indian enslaved people. Anyways, it's not said in our history, but that's a fact of what it is. The bigger picture. So I'm coming to my end. I know I have 2 minutes, but I need to talk about the bigger picture. So the river is a living being to those communities. Besides the caboclo d'água, the nego d'água, the mãe d'água, the river itself, or as those communities call it, herself, is more than a human being. She generates life. She takes life, both natural in the sense of not human. Of course, humans are natural beings too, but anyways, you understood me. And also human lives. The river, she permitted the existence of lives around it, the sociabilities, the forming of communities. They are all there because of the river. Those communities can be structured and also can be ended. If there's a flood, for example, the whole community can die. And that depends on the river and in the magical religious system that it's based on. If we consider the living as the river as a living being, it has will. So people interact with it in that very sense. They give offerings to the river. That's why they call the river a she. It is an old lady, a powerful female deity, female in the sense that it gives life. So past and present lives are, and past and present communities depend and are connected by the river. If the river dies, all of this is lost. Nema could only learn, live, and value always important history because of the river. It would not have happened without the river. We could only learn all of this through Nema because of the river. the river is still connecting us right now. Her tragedy, her difficult life in Minas Gerais past, reminds us in the presence of the importance of the river and all the lives surrounding her. The vital energy, the axé of the river, or ungunzo of the river, of the Velho Chico, is present here right now. The river has a geography that's physical, but as an energy, it's connecting, it's still us right here, right now, to this story. And to point out, not only the St. Francis River have a share, all ecosystems have a share, have vital energy. The whole nature lives and generates life. That's the bigger picture behind all this story and all that Nema was trying to say. And coming to the end, not a parenthesis right now, Nema still talked, when she was talking about all of that, of the indigenous people that helped her. She could only walk to the river because she had the help of the indigenous people that were very solidary with her. That's also not written in Brazilian history. Brazilian official history tells us that Black people and indigenous people were rivals, and they needed the Portuguese as a civilizational force to make them live together. That's not what happened. They were very solidary, and they helped themselves. Nema and all of us are learning from her here right now because of that solidarity. And to mention it, most likely were the Cariris, that's a big group. Most likely it was the Cariri indigenous group that was her guide, not other, well, it could be other indigenous groups, but that doesn't really matter, objectively speaking. What matters is that solidarity that existed, and that's what made it all possible. Wrapping up, so the Velho Chico is being degraded with the excuse of sustaining modern life demands, but she, the Velho Chico, has always sustained life, and she has a life. Nema tells a story that values and saves through the remembrance forgotten lives of all those people that we just mentioned. Traditional communities struggle to sustain their memories. They are in opposition to colonial modern pattern of destruction. And research such as my own try to give a meaning that's so giving a way that so those traditional communities can actually talk. They talk, they are not silenced. So what I'm doing is just making it easier for them to talk. And wrapping up that so we can make some justice once again, that's our imagined Nema. I'm going to teach you now one word in Português, that's Black Brazilian Portuguese. The word is saravá. It means to salute. So try to repeat after me, saravá. Saravá. And now, saravá Nema. Saravá Nema. Now we just saluted her. Thank you very much.